It was a day that would be seared into my memory forever, marking both an ending and a beginning I never saw coming. I had simply accompanied my daughter-in-law Simone to her final prenatal checkup at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. We were full of anticipation for our first grandchild, a new chapter for the Jefferson family that seemed to promise joy and warmth and shared laughter. But when Dr. Evans grabbed my arm in that sterile examination room and whispered, "Get out of here immediately and file for divorce," I knew that my 42-year marriage, my carefully constructed life, had just collapsed like a house of cards. A single sentence had shaken the foundation of everything I believed to be true. I stood there speechless, my heart threatening to burst from my chest, my mind refusing to accept what I was hearing. Dr. Evans was a man in his early 50s, with kind eyes that at that moment held nothing but deep concern and something that looked like horror. He kept checking the ultrasound screen, furrowing his brows, going back over the readings like he was hoping the numbers would somehow change. "Mrs. Jefferson," he said, his voice trembling, barely more than a whisper that cut through the silence, "I need to speak with you alone, right now." Simone, lying on the examination table, turned to me with worry in her eyes. "Is everything okay, Mama Marlene? Is something wrong with the baby?" I forced a smile that felt like it might crack my face in half. Dr. Evans pulled me firmly into a small adjoining room, closing the door behind us. What he showed me on that screen took my breath away and shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. The data didn't add up. The baby's heartbeat, the size, the development stage. Everything pointed to a timeline that couldn't possibly match what Simone had been telling us. This baby could not be my son Andre's child. The numbers were impossible, absurd, a slap across the face that left me reeling. Andre had been on a business trip to Atlanta exactly when this baby was conceived. He'd been gone for 3 weeks leading an important project for his company, and the timelines didn't overlap at all. I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. My hands started trembling so badly I had to grip the edge of the counter to steady myself. "Mrs. Jefferson," Dr. Evans said, his voice breaking with the weight of what he had to tell me. "This baby is 8.5 months along. Your son was out of town 9 months ago. I know this because I treated your husband Raymond when he injured his back exactly 9 months ago. He was here at this hospital for 2 days. The timing matches perfectly." There it was, the truth, cold and brutal and undeniable. Raymond. My husband of 42 years. My companion through everything life had thrown at us. He was the father of the baby Simone was carrying. My mind refused to process it. Everything I knew about my life, my marriage, my family was a lie. My husband and my daughter-in-law had betrayed me in the worst way imaginable, and now they were trying to pass this baby off as my legitimate grandchild. In that moment, I understood that the $8 million in real estate I owned, properties in Jackson, on the Gulf Coast, in Memphis, everything I had worked decades to build was at risk. This wasn't just about hurt feelings or broken trust. This was a calculated attack on everything I'd spent my life creating. They had planned this. This whole sick scheme was designed to deceive me, to make me accept this baby as Andre's child, so they could eventually claim my inheritance. They thought I was some naive old woman whose heart would melt at the sight of a grandchild, who wouldn't ask questions. But what Raymond and Simone didn't know was that I, Marlene Jefferson, hadn't become a successful businesswoman by being gullible or weak. I had survived Jim Crow Mississippi, built wealth from nothing, raised a son while managing properties and fighting for every dollar. And what I was about to do would destroy their plans completely. The pain was unbearable, like someone had reached into my chest and torn my heart out with bare hands. But from that pain rose something stronger: determination, fury, a cold, clear resolve. I didn't go home that night. I said nothing to either of them. I simply disappeared. My absence wasn't running away. It was the first move in a game they'd started without realizing I knew how to play it better than they ever could. While they frantically searched for me, Probably panicking because their scheme was falling apart, I spent the next 3 months planning the most thorough revenge imaginable. My name is Marlene Jefferson. I'm 67 years old, and for 42 years, I believed I had a solid marriage built on love and respect and partnership. How terribly wrong I was. My life had been a carefully constructed illusion, and now that illusion had shattered into 1,000 pieces. But underneath those broken pieces, I found something I didn't know I still had. Strength, power, the will to fight back. And I was about to teach Raymond and Simone the most expensive lesson of their lives. I met Raymond when I was 25 years old, a young woman with dreams bigger than Jackson, Mississippi seemed able to hold. He was ambitious, hardworking, a man who promised me the world and said he'd bring me the stars. And I, like so many women of my generation, gave him everything. My youth, my energy, my family inheritance. I wasn't just any woman. My father, God rest his soul, had been one of the few black landowners in Mississippi who'd managed to hold on to his property through Reconstruction, through Jim Crow, through everything this state had thrown at our people. He'd left me properties in Jackson, rental houses that brought in steady income, land on the Gulf Coast that would become valuable, a small apartment building in Memphis. Real estate worth over $2.8 million today. Back then, it was worth far less in dollar amounts, but worth everything in terms of legacy and survival. But Raymond convinced me he could manage it all better. Marlene, baby. He told me with that charming smile I now recognize as manipulation, you don't understand business like I do. Let me handle the properties, put everything in both our names so we're true partners. And I, believing in love and partnership and the promises he made, did exactly that. Every deed, every document bore both our names, a symbol of our supposed unity that would turn out to be the chain around my neck. For 42 years, I worked day and night to grow what my father had left me. While Raymond attended his business meetings, which I later learned often involved drinks with women at bars downtown, I managed the rentals. I collected rents, I dealt with repairs, I supervised construction projects, I handled tenant complaints. I'd wake up at 5 inches the morning to make breakfast for Raymond and Andre. Then I'd drive across Jackson, checking on properties, making sure everything was maintained, that every dollar coming in was accounted for. When I came home, I still had to cook dinner, clean the house, take care of my family like I hadn't already worked a full day. Marlene, Raymond would say when he came home late, his clothes wrinkled, sometimes smelling of perfume that wasn't mine, you don't understand the pressure I'm under. I need you to be more supportive. I believed him. I tried to be understanding, sacrificing my own needs and dreams to keep him comfortable, to maintain the appearance of a happy family. Andre was born when I was 28. From the moment I held that baby, he became the center of my world, the light in what was often a difficult life. I raised him practically alone because Raymond always had important commitments that kept him away from home until late at night. Andre grew up watching his mother work herself to exhaustion. He saw my sacrifices, even if he didn't fully understand them then. I paid for him to attend the best schools I could afford, sent him to Jackson State University, then helped him get his master's degree in business administration. All of it funded by the properties I managed while Raymond took credit for our family's success. He presented himself as the successful businessman who'd built everything, while I did the actual work in the background, invisible and unappreciated. When Andre married Simone 3 years ago, I was overjoyed. Finally, I thought I'd have the daughter I never had. Simone was sweet, affectionate, always called me Mama Marlene and hugged me like I was her own mother. Mrs. Jefferson, she told me with tears in her eyes soon after meeting our family, you're the mother I always dreamed of. My own parents abandoned me when I was 16, but with you, I feel like I'm finally home. Those words melted my heart. I welcomed her into our family with open arms, helped her and Andre furnish their first apartment, gave them money when they were struggling. I treated her like the daughter I'd always wanted. When Simone announced she was pregnant 4 months ago, I cried tears of joy. Finally, I would be a grandmother. Finally, the Jefferson legacy would continue into another generation. I started planning, buying baby clothes, setting up a nursery in my house for when they'd visit. But now I understood the truth. The whole thing had been a setup from the beginning. That day at the hospital, after Dr. Evans dropped his bomb, I walked out in a daze. Simone called after me, asking if I was okay, but I barely heard her. I got in my car and drove, not knowing where I was going, just needing to move, to breathe, to think. I ended up at the reservoir, staring out at the water, trying to process what had just happened. My husband of 42 years had slept with my daughter-in-law, had gotten her pregnant. And they were both planning to pass this baby off as Andre's child, as my legitimate grandchild. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Not just the betrayal, but the calculation behind it. They'd planned this. They'd looked at me and seen an old woman they could manipulate, whose love for family would make her blind to what was happening right in front of her face. My phone rang constantly. Raymond. Simone. Andre, probably called by his wife, worried about where I was. I turned it off. I couldn't talk to any of them. Not yet. Not until I figured out what to do. I checked into a hotel that night. A nice one downtown, using my own credit card that Raymond didn't have access to. I ordered room service and sat in that anonymous room trying to put the pieces together. How long had this been going on? Was it just once? Or had they been carrying on an affair right under my nose? Did Andre know? Was my own son part of this scheme, or was he as much a victim as I was? The questions swirled in my head until I thought I might lose my mind. But by morning, something had shifted inside me. The shock and pain were still there, but underneath them was something harder, colder, stronger. I wasn't going to fall apart. I wasn't going to let them destroy me. I was Marlene Jefferson, daughter of a man who'd survived Mississippi at its worst, a woman who'd built wealth from nothing in a state that did everything it could to keep people like me down. If Raymond and Simone wanted to play games with me, I'd show them exactly who they were dealing with. I pulled out my phone and made a call to Catherine Wellstone, the best divorce attorney in Mississippi. Her reputation for destroying unfaithful husbands in court was legendary. "Catherine," I said when she answered, "this is Marlene Jefferson. I need to hire you, and I need to move fast." Catherine Wellstone's office was in a renovated historic building on Capitol Street, all exposed brick and modern glass that announced success without being ostentatious. When I walked in the next morning, she was waiting for me. She was a woman in her late 42s with sharp eyes and an even sharper reputation. I'd heard stories about her from other women in my social circle, whispered accounts of how she'd taken cheating husbands to the cleaners in divorce court. "Mrs. Jefferson," she said, shaking my hand firmly, "tell me everything." I laid it all out for her. The prenatal appointment, Dr. Evans's revelation, the timeline that made it impossible for Andre to be the father, the realization that Raymond had to be. Catherine listened without interrupting, taking notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and studied me for a long moment. "Do you have proof?" she asked. "Beyond the doctor's timeline?" "Not yet, but I'm going to get it." "Good, because Mississippi is an at-fault divorce state. If we can prove adultery, especially adultery with your daughter-in-law, we can make sure you walk away with everything. But we need solid evidence. What do I need to do?" Catherine leaned forward, her expression all business. "First, don't go home." "Not yet. I need you to stay away while we build the case. Second, I'm going to recommend a private investigator named Wesley. He's the best in the state at gathering evidence for cases like this. Third, we need to document every asset you have, every property, every account, every dollar. Mississippi is not a community property state, so anything that was yours before the marriage or inherited stays yours. but anything acquired during the marriage gets divided. Most of the properties were mine before we married, I said, my father's inheritance, but Raymond convinced me to put everything in both our names. Catherine's expression darkened. That complicates things, but we can work with it. If we can prove he manipulated you into doing that, especially if he was already being unfaithful, we might be able to argue that those assets should revert solely to you. She pulled out a card and slid it across the desk. Call Wesley today. Tell him I sent you. He'll start gathering evidence immediately. In the meantime, I'll start drafting divorce papers. We'll file on grounds of adultery and request full custody of all marital assets. I want him to have nothing, I said, and my voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. After 42 years of using me, lying to me, stealing from me, I want him to walk away with exactly what he deserves, nothing. We'll do our best to make that happen. I called Wesley from my hotel room that afternoon. He had a deep, calm voice that immediately put me at ease. Mrs. Wellstone told me about your situation, he said. I'm sorry you're going through this, but I can help. I need you to tell me everything you know about your husband's movements, his routines, where he goes, who he sees. Over the next hour, I told Wesley everything. Raymond's supposed business meetings that often ran late into the night. The times he'd come home smelling of perfume or with lipstick on his collar that I'd convinced myself meant nothing. The credit card charges I'd seen for hotels and restaurants when he was supposed to be working. All the signs I'd ignored or explained away because I loved him and trusted him and believed in our marriage. I'll start surveillance immediately, Wesley said. If he's still seeing her, I'll document it. Photos. Video. Everything we need for court. For 3 months, I stayed away from Raymond. I moved between hotels, never staying in one place too long. I told no one where I was except Catherine and Wesley. My phone rang constantly at first. Raymond, frantic, leaving voicemails begging me to come home, to tell him what was wrong, to let him fix whatever he'd done. Simone called too, her voice sweet and concerned. Mama Marlene, please come home. We're so worried about you. The baby needs you. Andre needs you. Andre called, genuinely confused and upset. Mom, what's going on? Dad says you just disappeared. Are you okay? Are you sick? Please just tell me where you are. Those calls from Andre were the hardest. My son didn't know. He had no idea that his wife was carrying his father's child. The betrayal wasn't just against me. It was against him too. But I couldn't tell him yet. Not until I had all the evidence. Not until I was ready to burn their whole scheme to the ground. Wesley worked fast. Within 2 weeks, he had photos of Raymond and Simone meeting at a hotel in Ridgeland. Images of them walking in together, leaving hours later. Video of them in Raymond's car, kissing in the parking lot before going inside. They're not even being careful, Wesley told me when he delivered the first batch of evidence. They must think you don't suspect anything. They think I'm stupid, I said. They think I'm some naive old woman who'll just accept whatever they tell me. Their mistake, Wesley said with a grim smile. More evidence came in over the following weeks. Bank records showing Raymond had been withdrawing cash regularly for months, money I'd never seen accounted for, records of hotel rooms booked in his name. Text messages Wesley had managed to retrieve showing the affair had been going on for over a year. An entire year. While Simone smiled in my face, called me Mama, accepted my help and my money and my love, she'd been sleeping with my husband. While Raymond came home every night, kissed my cheek, shared my bed, he'd been betraying me with our son's wife. The depth of the deception was staggering. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a mistake. This was a calculated, ongoing affair that had produced a child they were trying to pass off as legitimate. Catherine called me in for a meeting after 10 weeks of evidence gathering. We have everything we need, she said, spreading documents across her desk. Photos, video, bank records, text messages, hotel receipts. We can prove adultery beyond any doubt. But there's one more thing I discovered that you need to know about. She slid a document toward me. It was a life insurance policy. My life insurance policy, the one I'd taken out years ago with Andre as the beneficiary. Your husband changed the beneficiary 8 months ago, Catherine said quietly. He's now listed as the primary beneficiary, with Simone as secondary. My blood ran cold. 8 months ago, right when she would have gotten pregnant. Exactly. Mrs. Jefferson, I think this goes deeper than just an affair. I think they were planning something much worse. The implication hung in the air between us, too terrible to speak out loud. They hadn't just betrayed me. They'd been positioning themselves to benefit from my death. File the divorce papers, I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning through my veins, and make copies of everything. I want Andre to know exactly who his wife really is. Catherine filed the divorce papers on a Wednesday morning, exactly 3 months after I'd walked out of that doctor's office. She'd timed it perfectly. Raymond was served at his office downtown, in front of his colleagues and business associates. Simone was served at the house she shared with Andre. I wanted them to feel the public humiliation I'd felt, sitting in that doctor's office learning my husband had impregnated my daughter-in-law. Within an hour, my phone exploded with calls. I ignored all of them except the one from Andre. "Mom," he said, his voice shaking, "what is going on? Simone just got served with some kind of legal papers saying she's named in your divorce from Dad. This has to be a mistake." "It's not a mistake, baby. I need you to come to the Fairview Inn, room 312. Come alone. Don't tell Simone. Don't tell your father. Just come." "Mom, you're scaring me." "I know, but you need to hear this from me, and you need to see the evidence with your own eyes." He arrived 30 minutes later, looking terrified and confused. I'd never kept secrets from my son, never lied to him about anything important. Seeing the fear in his eyes as he walked into that hotel room broke my heart all over again. "Sit down, Andre," I said gently. "Mom, what is this about? Why are you divorcing Dad? Why is Simone's name on the papers?" I handed him a folder. Inside were copies of everything Wesley had gathered. The photos of Raymond and Simone at the hotel, the bank records showing the cash withdrawals, the text messages, and most damning of all, the medical records showing the baby's true conception date. Andre's hands shook as he flipped through the documents. I watched his face change as the truth sank in. Disbelief, denial, horror, and finally, a pain so deep it made him double over like he'd been physically struck. "No," he whispered. "No, this can't be real. Simone wouldn't, Dad wouldn't, they wouldn't do this to me. I'm so sorry, baby. But it's all true. The baby Simone is carrying, it's not yours, it's your father's." He looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. "How long have you known?" 3 months. Since that last doctor's appointment. Dr. Evans figured it out from the timeline and the ultrasound measurements. 3 months, he repeated, his voice hollow. "You've known for 3 months and you didn't tell me." I had to be sure. I had to gather evidence so they couldn't deny it, couldn't twist it, couldn't make you think I was crazy or lying or confused. I needed you to see the truth with your own eyes. Andre stood up abruptly, pacing the small hotel room like a caged animal. I trusted her. I loved her. I thought we were building a family together. I was so happy about the baby. "I know, sweetheart." "And Dad," his voice broke on the word, "my own father. How could he do this to me? To you? To our family? I don't have an answer for that. I wish I did." He sank back down into the chair, the folder of evidence falling from his hands onto the floor. "What am I supposed to do now? I can't go home. I can't look at her. I can't even be in the same room with her knowing what she did. You can stay here with me tonight. Tomorrow, Catherine has a referral for a good divorce attorney for you. You'll need your own lawyer, separate from mine." "Divorce," he said numbly. "I'm going to have to divorce my wife because she's pregnant with my father's baby. How is this my life?" We sat together in that hotel room for hours. Andre cried, raged, ask questions I couldn't answer. Why had they done this? How long had it been going on? Did they ever love us at all? Or had we just been marks in some twisted game? My phone kept ringing. Raymond, Simone. I turned it off. They could wait. My son needed me more than I needed to hear their lies and excuses. Around midnight, Andre finally fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from emotional devastation. I covered him with a blanket and sat watching him, this man I'd raised, who just had his whole world destroyed by the two people who should have loved and protected him most. The next morning, Catherine called with news. Raymond's lawyer reached out, she said. He wants to negotiate. There's nothing to negotiate. That's what I told him. But apparently Raymond is in a panic. The divorce papers lay out all the evidence, and his lawyer knows he doesn't have a leg to stand on. In Mississippi, adultery affects everything. Alimony, property division, all of it. Raymond knows he's about to lose everything. Good, that's exactly what I want. There's more. Simone apparently confessed everything to Andre last night. She called him repeatedly until he finally answered. According to the messages she left, she's claiming it was all Raymond's idea, that he seduced her, that she was afraid to say no because he controlled the family money. I laughed bitterly. She's trying to play victim. After a year of lying and scheming, now she wants sympathy. It won't work in court. We have evidence showing she was an active participant. The text messages make it clear this wasn't coercion. This was a calculated affair. Andre woke up and joined me on the call. His eyes were red and swollen, but there was something else there too. Anger, determination. The same look I'd seen in the mirror for the past 3 months. I want to file for divorce, he told Catherine. Today. And I want her out of the house by the end of the week. We can make that happen. I'll have my colleague James Hartley contact you within the hour. He specializes in these cases. After the call ended, Andre looked at me. What's your plan, Mom? I know you have one. You always have a plan. We're going to take everything from them. The properties, the money, the life they thought they'd stolen from us. And then we're going to build something better without them. I want to help. Whatever you need me to do, I'm in. Over the next few days, things moved quickly. Catherine filed motions to freeze all joint accounts and prevent Raymond from selling or transferring any assets. Andre filed for divorce from Simone and got a temporary order requiring her to move out of their house. The Jackson community was buzzing with gossip. In a city like ours, news traveled fast, especially scandal involving prominent black families. People I'd known for years called expressing shock and sympathy. Some were genuine, others just wanted details they could share. Raymond tried to reach me through mutual friends, through our pastor at church, through anyone who might get me to talk to him. I refused every attempt. There was nothing he could say that would change what he'd done. Simone left messages crying and begging, claiming she was sorry, that she'd made a terrible mistake, that she still loved Andre, but her tears meant nothing. She'd had a year to do the right thing, a year to tell the truth. She'd chosen lies and deception instead. The court date for the initial divorce hearing was set for 6 weeks out. In the meantime, Wesley continued his surveillance, documenting every move Raymond and Simone made. They were still seeing each other, even after being exposed. The audacity was breathtaking. They're meeting at her new apartment, Wesley reported. Raymond helped her move in, paid the first 3 months' rent. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. Good, I said. Let them keep digging their own graves deeper. The divorce hearing was held on a humid September morning at the Hinds County Courthouse. I wore my best Navy suit, the one I saved for important business meetings. I wanted to look powerful, composed, nothing like the devastated woman I'd been 3 months earlier. Raymond sat across the courtroom with his attorney, a man named Douglas Mitchell, who had a reputation for defending difficult cases. Raymond looked terrible. He'd lost weight, his suit hung loose on his frame, and there were dark circles under his eyes. Part of me felt satisfaction seeing him suffer. Another part, The part that had loved him for 42 years felt a twinge of something that might have been pity. I pushed that feeling down. He didn't deserve my pity. Catherine stood up when the judge called our case. Your Honor, we're here today on a petition for divorce on the grounds of adultery. Mrs. Jefferson is seeking dissolution of the marriage and full ownership of all properties currently held in joint names. Judge Anderson, a stern woman in her 60s who'd been on the bench for 20 years, looked over her glasses at the file. Mr. Mitchell, how does your client respond to these allegations? Douglas Mitchell stood slowly. Your Honor, my client admits that he made a terrible mistake. He deeply regrets his actions and wishes to make amends. However, we contest the property division. Mr. Jefferson contributed significantly to the acquisition and maintenance of these properties over 42 years of marriage. Catherine was ready. Your Honor, we have documentation showing that all properties in question were inherited by Mrs. Jefferson from her father prior to the marriage. Mr. Jefferson convinced Mrs. Jefferson to add his name to the deeds under false pretenses of partnership while he was already engaging in extramarital affairs. She presented the evidence methodically: photos of Raymond and Simone at hotels, bank records showing cash withdrawals that funded their affair, text messages planning their meetings, and most damning, the medical records showing the baby's conception timeline matched exactly when Raymond was supposedly helping me oversee repairs on our Gulf Coast property while Andre was in Atlanta. Your Honor, Catherine continued, this wasn't just adultery. This was a calculated scheme to defraud Mrs. Jefferson of her inheritance and potentially endanger her life. She presented the life insurance policy documents showing how Raymond had changed the beneficiary without my knowledge. Judge Anderson's expression grew darker as she reviewed each piece of evidence. Mr. Mitchell, this is quite damning. Does your client have any explanation for changing the life insurance beneficiary without his wife's knowledge? Douglas Mitchell looked uncomfortable. Your Honor, my client made that change during a period of confusion and poor judgment. Confusion, the judge repeated flatly. Mr. Jefferson, stand up. Raymond stood, looking like he wanted to disappear into the floor. You had an affair with your daughter-in-law, got her pregnant, attempted to pass the child off as your son's, withdrew marital funds to support this affair, and changed your wife's life insurance beneficiary to yourself. And your defense is confusion? Your Honor, I made terrible mistakes, Raymond said, his voice cracking, but I never intended to hurt anyone. I love my wife. I love my family. You have a strange way of showing love, Mr. Jefferson. Judge Anderson turned to Catherine. What is Mrs. Jefferson seeking in this divorce? Complete dissolution of the marriage, full ownership of all properties currently held jointly, reimbursement for all funds withdrawn to support the affair, and attorney's fees. We're also requesting that the court recognize that all properties were Mrs. Jefferson's separate property that was improperly converted to joint ownership through fraud and manipulation. The judge reviewed the documents for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she looked up. I'm granting the divorce on grounds of adultery. As for the property division, I'm ordering a full accounting of all assets and their origins. We'll reconvene in 30 days for a final hearing on property distribution. In the meantime, Mr. Jefferson is prohibited from selling, transferring, or encumbering any properties or assets. This includes the marital home. Raymond's face went pale. Your Honor, where am I supposed to live? That's not my concern, Mr. Jefferson. Perhaps you should have considered housing arrangements before you decided to have an affair with your daughter-in-law. Court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Catherine smiled. That went better than expected. Judge Anderson clearly doesn't have any sympathy for him. What happens in 30 days? We'll present documentation proving all the properties were your inheritance. Mississippi law is clear that inherited property remains separate unless it's been commingled beyond recognition. Since you can trace each property directly to your father's estate, you have a strong case for getting everything back in your name only. Andre had been waiting outside the courtroom. He'd attended his own divorce hearing the day before. How'd it go? Good, really good. What about yours? His expression was grim. Simone didn't even show up. Her lawyer said she went into early labor last night. She had the baby this morning. I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Anger at what that baby represented, sadness for the innocent child who'd been born into this mess, relief that at least now the evidence of their betrayal was undeniable. Boy or girl? I asked quietly. Girl. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Her lawyer sent photos. He pulled out his phone and showed me. The baby looked like Raymond. There was no denying the resemblance. Have you heard from Dad? He called me 47 times yesterday. I finally answered. He cried, said he was sorry, that he never meant for any of this to happen, said he loves me. What did you tell him? I told him that love doesn't look like what he did. And then I hung up. We stood outside that courthouse, mother and son, survivors of a betrayal that should have destroyed us, but we were still standing, still fighting. Over the next month, Catherine worked tirelessly preparing for the final property hearing. She tracked down every deed, every title, every document, proving the properties had been my father's and had come to me through inheritance. She showed how Raymond had systematically convinced me to add his name to everything, promising it was just for estate planning purposes, for partnership, for our future together. Wesley continued documenting Raymond's movements. He'd moved in with Simone and the baby in her small apartment. The great love affair was happening in a 2-bedroom rental in a mediocre part of town, far from the life of comfort they'd been living on my money. They're arguing constantly, Wesley reported. Neighbors have complained about the noise. Apparently reality isn't matching the fantasy they had planned. The final hearing came at the end of October. This time, Raymond looked even worse. The stress had aged him years in just a few months. Catherine presented our case methodically, showing the clear chain of inheritance from my father to me, demonstrating how each property had been improperly transferred to joint ownership, proving that Raymond had contributed nothing to the acquisition of any property. Your Honor, she concluded, Mrs. Jefferson trusted her husband. She believed in their partnership. He exploited that trust to gain access to assets that were never rightfully his. We're asking the court to correct this injustice and restore Mrs. Jefferson's separate property to her sole ownership. Judge Anderson didn't take long to decide. Based on the evidence presented, I find that all properties in question were Mrs. Jefferson's separate property obtained through inheritance. The addition of Mr. Jefferson's name to the deeds does not change this fundamental fact. I'm ordering all properties to be returned to Mrs. Jefferson's sole ownership. Additionally, Mr. Mrs. Jefferson's sole ownership. Jefferson is ordered to pay Mrs. Jefferson $150,000 in reimbursement for marital funds used to support his affair, plus attorney's fees. The gavel came down. It was over. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Freedom. The weight that had been crushing my chest since that day at the doctor's office finally lifted. Raymond tried to approach me on the courthouse steps. Marlene, please. Can we just talk? There's nothing to talk about, Raymond. The court has spoken. You have 30 days to remove your personal belongings from the house. After that, anything left becomes mine. Where am I supposed to go? I don't have anywhere to live. I don't have any money. You have Simone and your daughter. I'm sure you'll figure it out. His face crumpled. That baby, I never wanted. I didn't plan for any of this. It just happened. Nothing just happens, Raymond. You made choices. Every single day for over a year, you chose to lie to me, to betray our son, to destroy our family. Now you get to live with those choices. Andra stood beside me, silent support. Raymond looked at his son with desperate eyes. Andre, please. You have to understand. I love you. You're my son. I was your son, Andre said quietly. But you threw that away when you decided to sleep with my wife. Don't call me anymore. Don't try to contact me. As far as I'm concerned, you're dead. Raymond's face went pale. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. We walked away, leaving him standing there on those courthouse steps, a broken man who'd gambled everything and lost. The next month was spent reclaiming my life. I changed all the locks on the house. I had the properties formally transferred back into my name only. I opened new bank accounts that Raymond couldn't access. I went through every room of my house, removing traces of him, 42 years of shared life packed into boxes and stored in the garage for him to collect. He came to get his things on a Tuesday afternoon, driving a rental truck. I watched from the window as he loaded boxes, his movements slow and defeated. Simone waited in the passenger seat holding the baby. Neither of them looked at the house, at what they'd lost. Andre had filed his divorce from Simone, which she didn't contest. She couldn't. The evidence was overwhelming, and she knew it. The baby was DNA tested at the court's request, confirming what we already knew. Raymond was the father. The Jackson community had turned against them completely. In the South, family loyalty means everything. A man who betrays his wife of 42 years with his own daughter-in-law becomes a pariah. Raymond's business contacts dried up. No one wanted to be associated with him. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd tried to find work, but his reputation preceded him everywhere he went. The story had spread through Mississippi's tight-knit black business community like wildfire. Everyone knew what he'd done. Meanwhile, my life began to flourish in ways I never expected. Without Raymond draining resources on his secret affair, without having to support his lifestyle and his lies, my finances grew exponentially. The rental properties that I'd managed alone for decades now generated income that was entirely mine. I decided to expand. I bought 2 more apartment buildings in Jackson and a commercial property in downtown that I converted into mixed-use retail and office space. Andre became my official business partner. We formed Jefferson Properties LLC, a name that reflected our heritage and our future. "Mom," Andre said one day, as we reviewed the quarterly numbers, "we've tripled our portfolio in 6 months. You're a brilliant businesswoman. I never really saw it before because Dad always took the credit. Your grandfather taught me everything I know. He survived Mississippi when it was trying to destroy people like us. He taught me that property is power, that land is legacy. I'm just continuing what he started." Andre had thrown himself into work, using it as a way to heal from the devastation of his divorce. He brought fresh ideas and energy to the business, modern management techniques and technology that complemented my decades of experience. We made a good team, better than I'd ever been with Raymond. One afternoon, I was working in my garden, something I'd rediscovered after years of being too busy taking care of everyone else. My phone rang. It was Raymond. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want, Raymond?" "Marlene." His voice was broken, hollow. "I need to talk to you. Please, just 5 minutes." "You have 3. Simone left me. She took the baby and moved in with another man. Someone who has money, who can provide for her. I'm alone with nothing." I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, nothing. "And you're telling me this why?" "Because I made a terrible mistake. The worst mistake of my life. I threw away 42 years, our family, everything that mattered. For what? For someone who was just using me like I used you." "You're right. You did throw it all away. Marlene, I know I don't deserve it, but could we try again? We're family. We have history. That has to mean something." I laughed, a real, genuine laugh that echoed through my garden. "Raymond, you're right about one thing. 42 years does mean something. It means $2.8 million in real estate that's now solely in my name. It means a thriving business. It means freedom from a man who never appreciated me. That's what those years are worth. But Marlene, please, I've changed. I can be better. I can be the husband you deserved." "I've changed too, Raymond. I'm no longer the woman who accepted crumbs of respect. I'm no longer the wife who looked the other way when you came home smelling like another woman. I'm Marlene Jefferson, successful businesswoman, and I'm happier than I've ever been." I hung up without waiting for his response. Raymond never called again after that day. I heard later from Wesley, who'd kept loose tabs on the situation, that Raymond had tried to file a lawsuit claiming I'd abandoned the marital home, and he deserved compensation. His lawyer explained that since he'd committed adultery and had been legally ordered out of the property, he had no grounds for any claim. The lawsuit was dismissed before it even made it to a hearing. Another humiliation for a man who'd once carried himself with such pride. 3 months after that final phone call, I learned from mutual acquaintances that Raymond was living in a boarding house on the west side of Jackson, working temp jobs when he could find them. The man who'd presented himself as a successful businessman for decades was now barely scraping by. Simone, according to the gossip network that connected Black professional communities across Mississippi, had moved to Atlanta with her new man and the baby. She'd tried to reach out to Andre a few times, claiming she wanted him to have a relationship with his half-sister, but he refused. Some wounds were too deep to heal. Andre had started dating again, slowly and carefully. He'd met a woman named Clara at a business networking event. She came from a good family in Jackson, worked as a teacher, and treated him with genuine kindness and respect. When he brought her to meet me, I could see the difference immediately. Clara wasn't performing. She wasn't trying to manipulate or scheme. She was simply herself, warm and honest and real. "Mrs. Jefferson," she said when Andre introduced us. "I've heard so much about you, not just from Andre, but from people all over Jackson. You're something of a legend in the business community." "I don't know about legend," I said, smiling. "I'm just a woman who learned to value herself." "That's exactly what makes you a legend," Clara replied. "Especially to women like me, who are watching and learning from your example." We became close quickly. Clara reminded me of who I'd been at her age, full of dreams and determination. But she had something I hadn't had. A partner who valued her, who listened to her, who saw her as an equal. Watching Andre with Clara, seeing how he treated her with respect and consideration, I realized he'd learned from his father's mistakes. The betrayal had broken him, but it had also taught him what love should never look like. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, Andre and Clara got married in a small ceremony at our church. It was a joyful day, full of hope and new beginnings. As I watched my son take his vows, promising to honor and cherish this woman, I felt proud of the man he'd become. Raymond wasn't invited, of course. Andre had meant what he said about cutting ties. Sometimes that's the only way to heal from a betrayal so deep it changes everything. 6 months after the wedding, Clara told us she was pregnant. The joy on Andre's face when he shared the news brought tears to my eyes. This time there would be no questions, no doubts, no betrayals. This baby would be born into a family built on trust and love. My first legitimate grandchild, a girl, was born on a spring morning. They named her Grace Marie Jefferson, after my mother. When the nurse placed that tiny baby in my arms, I felt a healing I didn't know I needed. This was what family should be. Pure love without manipulation or schemes. The Hayes Foundation for Elder Protection, something I'd started 6 months earlier, was growing beyond my expectations. I'd funded it with $200,000 initially, using it to provide free legal services and counseling to elderly people facing financial abuse from family members. "Mrs. Jefferson," the program director told me at our quarterly meeting, "we've helped 34 families in the past 6 months. Your story inspired so many people to come forward and get help." "How many of them are women?" I asked. 73%. Most of them are wives who've been exploited by their husbands, or mothers taken advantage of by their children. They all say the same thing. They thought they were too old to change their situations. "I was 67 when I finally fought back," I said. "If I can do it, anyone can." The foundation became my passion project. I spoke at churches, community centers, anywhere people would listen. I told my story over and over, not for sympathy, but to show other women that it was never too late to reclaim your life. Women would approach me after these talks, some crying, some angry, all of them carrying pain they'd held onto for too long. They'd tell me their stories of husbands who controlled all the money, children who stole from them, family members who exploited their generosity. "What should I do?" they'd ask. "Value yourself," I'd tell them. "Document everything. Get a good lawyer. And don't let guilt or obligation keep you trapped in a situation that's destroying you." One woman, probably in her early 72s, approached me after a talk at Macedonia Baptist Church. "Mrs. Jefferson, my husband has been taking money from our accounts for years. I just found out he has another family in Memphis. But we've been married for 48 years. I don't know if I have the strength to leave." I took her hands in mine. "Sister, you survived 48 years with a man who betrayed you. You have more strength than you know. The question isn't whether you can leave. The question is whether you're ready to stop settling for less than you deserve." She called me 3 weeks later. She'd filed for divorce and frozen their joint accounts. "I'm scared," she admitted, "but I'm also free for the first time in decades." 2 years after the divorce, I was invited to speak at a women's business conference in Atlanta. It was a big event, hundreds of women from across the South, all of them entrepreneurs and business owners looking to network and learn. I was nervous. Speaking to small groups at churches was one thing. Standing on a stage in front of hundreds of successful women was something else entirely. "Mom, you'll be amazing," Andre assured me as he drove me to the airport. "You've built an empire from nothing. You've survived betrayal that would have destroyed most people. You have a story worth telling." The conference was held at a beautiful hotel in Buckhead. As I stood backstage waiting to go on, I could hear the MC introducing me. "Our next speaker is a woman who exemplifies resilience and strength." At 67 years old, she discovered her husband of 42 years was having an affair with her daughter-in-law. Instead of falling apart, she fought back, reclaimed her inheritance, and built a thriving real estate business. Please welcome Marlene Jefferson. The applause was warm as I walked onto that stage. I looked out at hundreds of faces, women of all ages and backgrounds, all of them looking at me with interest and respect. I told my story. Not just the betrayal, but what came before it. Growing up in Mississippi, during segregation, watching my father hold on to land when everything in the system was designed to take it from him, inheriting that legacy, and almost losing it to a man who'd convinced me that love meant sacrifice. For 42 years, I said, I believed that being a good wife meant putting my husband first, even when he didn't deserve it. I worked to build our family's wealth while he took credit for my labor. I accepted excuses and lies because I thought that's what commitment looked like. The room was silent, women leaning forward in their seats. But the day I discovered the truth, something shifted in me. I realized that all those years, I hadn't just been giving Raymond my work and my money. I'd been giving him my power, and I decided I wanted it back. I talked about the 3 months I spent planning, gathering evidence, building my case, about the divorce proceedings and the property battle, about reclaiming what was rightfully mine. Today, at 69 years old, I own $2 million in real estate. I run a successful property management company with my son. I started a foundation that's helped over 150 families fight financial abuse. And most importantly, I'm happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way I never was during those 42 years of marriage. The applause when I finished was thunderous. Women stood up, some crying, others cheering. During the question and answer session, hands shot up all over the room. "How did you find the courage to leave?" one woman asked. "I realized I was already alone," I answered. Raymond had checked out of our marriage years before. I was just living with the ghost of what we used to be. Once I understood that, Leaving became the only logical choice. What would you say to women who think they're too old to start over? Another asked. I'd say that's exactly what they want you to think. Society, and sometimes our own families, want us to believe that at a certain age, we should just accept whatever situation we're in. But life doesn't end at 60 or 70 or 80. As long as you're breathing, you can change your circumstances. After my talk, women lined up to speak with me. They shared their stories, asked for advice, thanked me for giving them hope. One woman handed me a note that I still keep in my wallet. You saved my life today. I've been planning to stay in a marriage that's killing me because I thought I was too old to matter. You showed me I'm wrong. Thank you. Flying back to Jackson, I thought about how far I'd come. The woman who'd sat in that doctor's office 2 years ago, devastated and broken, felt like someone else entirely. I'd been reborn in the fire of that betrayal, and what emerged was stronger than what had been before. At home, my house no longer felt empty, despite being half as full. I'd redecorated completely, filling it with colors I loved instead of the neutral tones Raymond had always insisted on. My garden flourished with flowers I'd chosen. My office was filled with awards and recognitions from the business community. This was my space, built by me, for me. Andre stopped by that evening with Clara and baby Grace. We ate dinner together in my dining room, 3 generations of Jeffersons building new memories that weren't tainted by lies. How was the conference? Andre asked. Powerful. There were so many women there carrying pain they've held onto for decades. I hope I gave them some hope that it's possible to heal. Clara smiled. You gave me hope too, you know. When Andre first told me your story, I was amazed by your strength. You showed me what it looks like to refuse to be a victim. Grace made a happy sound from her high chair, and we all laughed. This baby would grow up knowing what a strong woman looked like. She'd see her grandmother running a business, speaking at conferences, refusing to settle for less than she deserved. That legacy mattered more than any amount of real estate. My phone buzzed with a message. It was from the woman who'd handed me the note at the conference. I filed for divorce today. 46 years of marriage ending, but 46 years of freedom beginning. Thank you for showing me the way. I showed the message to Andre. He squeezed my hand. You're changing lives, Mom. I'm just telling the truth. Sometimes that's all it takes. 3 years after that day at the doctor's office, I was sitting on my front porch on a warm Mississippi evening when a car pulled up to my house. I didn't recognize the vehicle, a beaten-up sedan that had seen better days. The driver got out, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Raymond. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 3 years. His hair was completely gray now, his face lined with exhaustion and something that might have been regret. He walked slowly up my driveway, his shoulders hunched like he was carrying an impossible weight. Marlene, he said when he reached the porch, I know I have no right to be here. You're right about that. What do you want, Raymond? I'm dying. The words came out flat, matter of fact, pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctors say I have maybe 4 months left. I felt a complicated swirl of emotions. Sadness for the man I'd once loved. Relief that he could never hurt me again. And underneath it all, a kind of peace that I'd already done my grieving for him years ago. I'm sorry to hear that. I know you don't owe me anything. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I needed to see you one more time. To tell you that you were right about everything. Right about what? That I threw away everything that mattered for something that was worthless. Simone left me the moment the money ran out. The baby, my daughter, I don't even know where she is now. Simone took her to Atlanta, and I haven't seen her since she was 6 months old. He sat down heavily on the porch steps, uninvited, but I didn't stop him. He looked too weak to stand much longer. I lost everything, he continued. My business, my reputation, my family, my son, and for what? For a woman who was using me the same way I was using you. The irony isn't lost on me. Is that what you came here for? To tell me you finally figured out what I knew all along? No, I came to apologize. Really apologize. Not the half-hearted excuses I gave before. What I did to you, to Andre, to our family, it was evil. There's no other word for it. And I've spent the last 3 years living with that knowledge, watching everything I destroyed and knowing I can never fix it. I looked at this man who'd been my husband for 42 years, who I'd built a life with, who'd betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. Part of me wanted to send him away, to refuse to give him the absolution he was seeking. But another part, the part that had found peace and healing, knew that my forgiveness wasn't for him. It was for me. I forgive you, Raymond, I said quietly. Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to anger was poisoning me. I let it go a long time ago. Tears ran down his face. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, you don't. But I'm not giving it to you for your sake. I'm giving it to myself, so I can be free of you completely. Can I ask you something? What? Are you happy? Really happy? I thought about my question carefully. Yes. I'm happier than I ever was during our marriage. My business is thriving. My son has a beautiful family. I wake up every morning knowing that every decision I make is mine, that no one is lying to me or using me or taking advantage of me. That's worth more than all the years we spent together. Raymond nodded slowly. I'm glad. You deserved better than what I gave you. You always did. Yes, I did. Can I see Andre? Just once before I die? I know he said he never wants to see me again, but I need to tell him I'm sorry. I need him to know that what I did wasn't his fault. That's not my decision to make. If Andre wants to see you, he will, but I won't pressure him either way. He has to make that choice for himself. Raymond stood up slowly, painfully. Thank you for talking to me. I know you didn't have to. I watched him walk back to his car, a broken man facing the end of his life with nothing but regrets. Part of me felt sad for him, but mostly, I felt grateful that I'd had the strength to walk away when I did. I called Andre after Raymond left and told him about the visit. He wants to see me, Andre said, his voice carefully neutral. He does, but only if you want to. You don't owe him anything. Andre was quiet for a long moment. I think I need to see him. Not for him, but for me. I need to tell him to his face how much he hurt me, how what he did changed my entire life. And then I need to let it go, so it doesn't poison the rest of my life. That sounds wise. Andre met with Raymond a week later. I don't know what was said between them, and I didn't ask. That was their business, their closure to find. But Andre came to my house afterward and said, I told him I forgive him, but that doesn't mean I want him in my life. He's still my father biologically, but that's all he is. Raymond died 6 weeks later. Andre went to the funeral, not because he wanted to, but because he felt it was the right thing to do. Simone didn't show up. Neither did the daughter she'd had with Raymond. In the end, he died alone with no family by his side, the ultimate consequence of his choices. Now, at 70 years old, I can look back on everything that happened and see it clearly. The betrayal nearly destroyed me, but in the end, it set me free. My real estate portfolio has grown to $3.4 million. Jefferson Properties LLC is one of the most successful Black-owned property management companies in Mississippi. The Hayes Foundation has helped over 300 families fight financial abuse. Andre and Clara are talking about having another baby. Grace is 2 years old now, bright and beautiful and full of joy. I travel when I want to. I bought a condo in Miami where I spend winters. I joined a book club, started painting, took up yoga. I do things just because I enjoy them, not because someone else expects them of me. Women still reach out to me, sharing their stories, asking for advice. I tell them all the same thing. You are never too old to choose yourself. You are never too far gone to reclaim your power. And you deserve to live a life that's yours, not one defined by someone else's betrayal. Sometimes people ask me if I regret those 42 years with Raymond. The honest answer is complicated. I don't regret the life I built or the son I raised. I don't regret the work I did or the properties I acquired. But I do regret not seeing the truth sooner. I regret the years I spent accepting less than I deserved because I thought that's what love and commitment looked like. But I don't dwell on those regrets. Instead, I focus on what I've built since. The business, the foundation, the life I've created that's entirely mine. The peace I've found in knowing my worth and refusing to settle for anything less. My father used to tell me that land was the only thing they couldn't take from us if we held onto it tight enough. He was talking about surviving in Mississippi as a black man, but the lesson applies to so much more. Our dignity, our self-worth, our power, these things can only be taken if we give them away. I gave mine away for 42 years, but I took it back, and now no one will ever take it from me again. That's the real victory. Not the money, or the properties, or even the satisfaction of watching Raymond face consequences. The real victory is waking up every morning as Marlene Jefferson, successful businesswoman, loving mother and grandmother, and most importantly, a woman who finally learned to value herself. And that, sisters, is a lesson worth learning at any age. That is Marlene Jefferson's story. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments below. I love seeing our global community come together over these stories about betrayal, revenge, and the moment when you discover your strength is greater than your pain. Real question. If you were Marlene, what would you have done? Would you have stayed silent when the doctor told you the truth? Would you have confronted them immediately? Or would you have disappeared for 3 months to plan your revenge the way Marlene did? Tell me in the comments. Hit that like button if this story made you feel something. Share it if you know someone dealing with a spouse who doesn't value them, someone whose family takes advantage of their generosity, someone who thinks they're too old to start over and reclaim their life. And subscribe for more raw, real stories about marriage betrayal, family exploitation, elder financial abuse, and what happens when you finally decide to fight back and take back what's yours. Thanks for watching. Sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who'll betray you worst. Sometimes the affair isn't just about another woman, it's about stealing your legacy. Sometimes forgiveness isn't about them, it's about freeing yourself. And sometimes the best revenge is building a life so incredible they realize exactly what they lost. See you in the next video.